Hello, virtuous thought leaders, scholars, and virtue change agents. My name is Dr. Lisa Marie Portugal, and I am the Leadership Architect. I'd like to welcome you today to another talk that I have prepared for you and in service to you and your goals. This talk is called Study of Ethics and Personal and Professional Application. It comes out of one of my many books called A Culture of Excellence: Virtuous Leadership Principles for Organizational Success, a Management System. And the cover slide is also the cover of the book, The Four Cardinal Virtues: Prudence, Justice, Fortitude, and Temperance. We cannot achieve greatness or magnanimity unless and until we master the virtues within ourselves. Reaching greatness or magnanimity is about virtue building within ourselves, our families, communities, and others. We cannot achieve magnanimity until fortitude, self-control, counsel, justice, prudence, understanding, respect for others, temperance, humility, charity, piety, and courage are present first within us. We cannot give to others what we do not possess ourselves. So understanding how to master ourselves and build virtue is the first, ongoing, and last step required for magnanimity. And mastering the virtues is a lifelong and ongoing process throughout our entire lives. When we fall, pick yourself up and start the practice of virtue building again, and do this throughout your entire life. Magnanimity is an ongoing process and a focus we should have throughout our lives. It is also a focus we should have for working with, mentoring, and coaching others to their greatness. We can build virtue within ourselves and help others in our sphere of influence to achieve greatness in their own lives by teaching the virtues and living the virtues in everything we do. I'd like to welcome you and invite you today to live virtuously. Okay, table of contents about Dr. Lisa Marie Portugal: study of ethics and personal and professional application, evolution of modern business ethics, traditional Christian philosophers, ethicists, and theologians, a settled disposition, also known as practical knowledge, and conclusion, studying the ancient ethicists. Okay, so my About Dr. Portugal page is here. I created a little avatar, cartoon avatar of me. So there you go. All right, let's continue on. Study of ethics and personal and professional application. Leaders should have a broad understanding regarding the historical foundation of ethics, sound ethical principles, and various cultural factors related to individual, organizational, and global contexts. A strong understanding about ethics related to socio-regulatory, motivation, judgments, and values can enrich one's perspective and thinking in these areas. Leaders, like yourself, can strengthen their personal and professional competencies in the area of ethics to guide their behavioral and decision-making process for personal and organizational success. This discussion examines the evolution of modern business ethics and the value of personal and organizational ethics. So now let's talk about the evolution of modern business ethics. The study of ancient ethical theory provides insights into practices and opinions related to a systematic way of thinking about moral and ethical values and choices. Furthermore, ancient ethical theory can provide some insight regarding the historical reflective accounts about the basic nature of human activity struggling with and grasping fundamental moral and ethical dilemmas in the pursuit of the value, rationale, quality, and essence of human actions and choices. An account of ancient ethical theory throughout history involves the following sophists from latest to earliest. Okay, and before I go at it and pronounce some of these for you, I want to also make a correction. On the last lecture or talk that I did just before this one, I almost got the pronunciation of eudaimonia correct. I think I said it as eudaimonia, but it's eudaimonia, and that is Greek meaning human flourishing. Okay, so let's see if I can pronounce some of these. The first one is Pyrrhonian. The Pyrrhonian skeptics, the Stoics, Epicurus, the Cyrenaics, the Cynics, Aristotle, and as you know, he's my favorite, and I've mentioned in other talks that Aristotelian philosophy and common law were the basic foundational, grounding for traditional Christianity. So traditional Christianity is based upon Aristotelian philosophy and common law. And then, of course, we have Plato and Socrates. So let's take a look at this little graphic I have here for you. I thought you might enjoy it because if you're listening to me, you probably enjoy learning. The pleasures arising from thinking and learning will make us think and learn all the more. Aristotle. Isn't that beautiful? I would have to say that certainly defines me. When anyone ever asks me how or why did I ever want to get so many degrees, because I just have a great pleasure in learning. It's a lot of fun for me. It's exciting. It's a personal turn on. So if you have a love of learning, you will probably enjoy that quote as well. Okay, so let's get to the next slide. Traditional Christian philosophers, ethicists, and theologians include, but are not limited to, the following individuals. And I have some pictures here for you also on the next two slides. So ancient, born before 500 AD. And so I'm going through first and second century philosophers and theologians and ethicists who were very important in the foundation of traditional Christianity. Ignatius of Antioch, first century. Up at the top right, you'll see that picture. There he is. And those are the beasts, the animals there. His story is very interesting. He refused to bow down and do sacrifices to the pagan gods. And for that, he was put there in the arena with an audience and torn apart by the beasts. That's his story. So a lot of these stories are very interesting. If you're ever interested in doing your own personal or research or taking a class, you can learn about the old church fathers who in fact are our real heroes. Okay, then there's Irenaeus. Irenaeus is on the bottom right in the circle, as you can see. His story is he protected traditional Christianity from Gnosticism and the Gnostics. He held fast and tight to describing and writing down and talking about and lecturing about what traditional Christianity was and refusing to have Christianity directed off into Gnosticism. Then we have Clement of Rome, Clement of Alexandria, Jerome, John Chrysostom, Augustine of Hippo. He's also very well known. I'm sure if you are a traditional Christian, you're probably familiar with Augustine of Hippo. He is fantastic. He wrote one of his great works. It's called City of God. It's about 1,000 pages long, but wait, there's more. Don't let that scare you. When I listened to the book. I have the book, but I also got it on audible.com. And I listen to a lot of books that way. So while I'm working or grading or writing or, something where I don't have to do, well, you know what? Actually, I have to do a lot of thinking in that. But my favorite way to listen when I'm listening to something that's more important, like City of God, is after I'm done at the end of my day with all of my work, and I'll relax in bed or relax in a chair, and I'll listen to Audible. And so the book, it's fairly inexpensive. It's really unbelievable how inexpensive it is for such a huge work, a huge famous work. And it's 10 hours long, as I said. And so I would just listen to it until I fell asleep, and I got through it. And it was so exciting. It's not boring at all. You would think that maybe it might be boring, but what was so exciting and interesting is that he kind of tells the tale and walks you through what life was like in his day. And you can compare what was going on then, which is exactly what's going on today, you know? So there was a lot of paganism there. As you know, we have paganism on the rise now. And let's see, what are some other stories about him? Oh, for instance, he was a pagan. He went through all the pagan dogmas. So he was very familiar with all the paganism of his day. And so when he came into Christianity, after he started looking into it and studying it, because he's a very intelligent man, he was able to find the truth and see the truth much more easily because he had that background of knowing a lot of the other pagan dogmas that were out there in his day. And it's always the same, you know, it repeats itself as we see that, you know, popping up lately in our time. But let's see, basically, here's another good story about him. He was sitting in a grassy area where there's a park bench, and he liked to sit there quite often and think. And at one time he heard like a childlike voice singing, like in a sing-song voice, "Take up and read, take up and read." And so it was like a mystical thing. That's when he started to take up his study of Christianity and look into it. And you'll notice a lot of times these philosophers and theologians are always depicted writing something, having a book, or having, you know, a writing mechanism with them, because they're the old church fathers and the great scholars, and our heroes too, as well. So there was one other thing I was going to bring up about Augustine. If I remember, I will bring it up soon. Okay, the next is Cyril of Alexandria. And then we move into early medieval, between 500 AD and 1100 AD. As you can see, Gregory the Great, John of Damascus. And I know what I was going to bring up. Okay, so he would, in his book, like I said, it's fascinating. So when he was still a pagan, he used to go to the theater a lot. When he became a Christian, he said, you know, he realized that that was, you know, a place of great sin, right? And ill repute, that kind of thing, and promiscuity. Because the theater, similar to like we know about Hollywood, the music industry, you know, things that are on TV that we see, there's a lot out there in our world today that was similar in his day, where things are presented in the theater to give people ideas so that they have opportunities to sin. And also in the pagan temples, I don't know if you're familiar with this, you might want to research that. In the pagan temples, there was a lot of promiscuity there as well. So with his background, and he even admits that he was a great sinner. You know, he sowed his wild oats. With all of his background, and then coming into Christianity, he had a lot of prior knowledge and a lot of information. So it was easy for him to identify the truth once he was able to study it and really, understand what the truth was. So he had some great background to share in his book. But like I said, the City of God, it's a fantastic listen to. I highly recommend it. Okay, so let's move on. The next slide I have for you is High Medieval, between 1100 AD and 1450 AD. Francis of Assisi, Thomas Aquinas, and Catherine of Siena. Francis of Assisi is on the bottom right. You'll see a lot of times he's depicted in pictures with what looks like a dog, but it was a wolf. Thomas Aquinas is up at the top right. And again, as you see, there he is, Thomas Aquinas, depicted with a book and with a writing mechanism in his hand. Same with the picture there in the center middle with the monocle, where it looks more modern. That's G.K. Chesterton. Also a great, philosopher and theologian and ethicist. There he is depicted. He was a writer, an author, and he was British. So look into him. He's very interesting. Also, you'll see here Dr. Peter Kreeft. He's on the bottom, 20th and 21st 21st century. I believe he's still alive. Yeah. So he's the one there. We must be courageous. Dr. Peter Kreeft. He is a professor, and he's fantastic. He's a writer, author, publisher, researcher, similar to myself. So all of these people, I highly recommend looking into them. If you're ever interested in learning about philosophy and theologians and old church fathers, you could do self-study or you could take a class on it. Okay, so let me give you a little background on Francis of Assisi. That story is fascinating. So there was a town that this wolf kept going into and killing the sheep, right? The penned in sheep, and also the wolf had killed some people in the town. So the people were just very distressed. They heard about Francis of Assisi, that he could hear God and he could also speak to animals. So they called him. He came. They explained the situation. He prayed on it, and then he went out to look for the wolf. He found the wolf, and the first thing he did was he made the sign of the cross in front of himself and the wolf, right? Like a large sign of the cross. Then the wolf, sat back on his hind legs. And then he started talking to the wolf, and he could understand and hear the wolf talking to him. He had asked the wolf, what was going on? Why were you going into town and killing people? And so the wolf explained to him, well, I hurt my leg, I hurt my paw, and I really, I like to go after other types of food, the rabbits and the squirrels and things, but since I got hurt, I can't do that. So he goes into town to get the easy prey that's penned up. And the reason why he had killed some people in the town is because they had coming after him, and so he felt threatened. He knew they were there to remove him, and so he had killed them. And it was like a handful of people, like a father, son, and someone else. So he got that explanation, Francis of Assisi, and then so he said, well, how about, after he got the explanation from the wolf, then he prayed some more when the wolf was there. And then the information that was translated to him was, offer the wolf shelter and that we will take care of you. Will you make a deal? If we take care of you and feed you, will you be peaceful and not kill anyone or hurt anyone? And the wolf agreed and put his paw in Francis of Assisi's hand. And so then they walked back together to the town. The people were a bit still scared, kind of shaky, but, they were willing to listen to what Francis of Assisi had to explain. And it turned out great. They ended up feeding the wolf. The wolf could come in and out of anyone's home. They would leave their doors open. He could come and go. He would rest in different homes. He would be fed. And he lived, I believe, another 2 years, and he lived in peace with the town, and he was a protector for them. He loved them. He took care of them, and he was, soft with the people. So it's a beautiful story. Okay, so Renaissance and early modern, born between 1450 AD and 1750 AD. We've got Thomas More, Leo the 23rd, and G.K. Chesterton. And then, of course, I mentioned Dr. Peter Kreeft. All right, so let's continue on. The next slide, we will be talking about a settled disposition known as practical knowledge. The ancient philosophers contemplated and debated virtue and morality pertaining to why and how individuals make choices, and how those choices can positively or negatively affect the individual and society. The study of ethics and virtues, such as the 4 cardinal virtues and all the other virtues found in traditional Christianity, play a significant role in how individuals rationalize and make decisions. A settled disposition is known as practical knowledge regarding how individuals will act or behave to express virtues such as piety, justice, moderation, and courage, which were esteemed moral virtues identified in ancient times. Individuals placing high value on the virtues tend to hold intrinsic motivation for doing so, as they believe expressing virtue in their lives improves the self and renders goodwill towards others in addition to the good of society. For example, the virtue of moderation addresses one's emotions and appetite in order to control oneself with moderation in these areas for the mastery of self, positive interactions with others, and for the enhancement of society. In conclusion, studying the ancient ethicists can aid leaders and organizations in understanding the value and importance of human excellence and human striving to achieve magnanimity. Magnanimity is another foundational virtue that involves the notion of achieving greatness in self and others. When ancient sophist ideas and opinions regarding the ethics and virtues are better understood, leaders like yourself and organizations can develop a framework for addressing how to apply these themes in daily application when dealing with modern dilemmas and challenges in the workplace. Finally, the study of ethics and virtues can aid in advancing a virtuous economy, learning model, curriculum, rubric, code of ethics, and standard of expectations for desired behaviors in the workplace by all stakeholders. A learning society incorporating ethics and the virtues can foster a shared culture of excellence to achieve individual and organizational success. I hope you enjoyed this talk today, and if any of these ideas inspired you, remember you can always do more personal study, and you can take some classes on any of these topics. Thank you so much. I'd like to wish you a beautiful Merry Christmas, since we're coming into the Christmas season. And also, it was my honor and my pleasure to create this for you and to serve you today. Goodbye and God bless.